I ask everybody this question, and I'm really interested to hear what you've got for us.
Millennium Falcon.
Well, Dr. Todd Wolynn, you are the CEO of Kids Plus Pediatrics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And you've described yourself, or at least your assistant who sent me your bio, described you as an entrepreneur trapped in a pediatrician's body. Welcome to PedChat.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
My first question is, I think, fairly obvious. What does it mean to be an entrepreneur trapped inside a pediatrician's body?
Okay, fair enough. I would say that definitely one of my favorite things to do is to help build new services and ways to help kids and families and help improve kids' health. I would tell you, though, what I've seen over my many years now in practice is that physicians usually are not, they are not really empowered to do creative things or to think outside of the box. And if you think about when physicians go into school, they usually double down on things like physics and bio and chemistry, whereas like business types go into negotiations and finance and economics and a bunch of other things. And so what you find out is that physicians oftentimes become pretty risk adverse, and they don't like to do things that might be considered part and parcel of entrepreneurship. And I think I find myself in both worlds. I think risk is variable. If you do your due diligence, I think you can get the risk tolerance kind of in line, where if you really have looked at the topic and looked at how you want to help kids and you've done your due diligence to see what all the aspects are, you can become quite entrepreneurial comfortably in a physician's body. At least I have. And so has our CFO. He actually went back to school and got an MBA, and I went back to school and got a Master of Medical Management.
I love it. Yeah, I like the mentality, and I would agree with you after talking to at least a few pediatricians, mostly via GoCheck customers, but also doing these episodes. That's one thing that seems to resonate from all of the guests, is that it's stepping out of the quantitative physician mindset and exploring possibilities, finding out, getting down to the why, learning business practices. In fact, Kids Plus, you consider yourself, I think it's called a living lab, which means that you're constantly open to testing out new approaches to improve your care, right?
That's absolutely right. If we think that it's going to improve patient health, and if our CFO says it won't break the bank, then we're totally up for trying it. And we don't always succeed. I'd say when we've traced back to our different projects, we're probably successful 90% of the time. And when we do fail, we still learn from it and continue to move forward.
Do you have a formal process for sharing the living lab idea throughout your organization? It could be a cultural process, but how do you get your employees bought into the idea that it's okay to raise your hand and be creative and give ideas to the organization to potentially act on them, so that we can, as you said, your goal is to improve children's health around your community. So what do you preach to your organization to make that happen?
So I would say a couple things. A lot of the innovative ideas have come up in the initial phases and waves through myself and working with our shareholders or our owners. So we're an independent practice with 5 owners. But this notion of really almost like Toyota method, or getting everybody at every level being able to contribute their insights into the process, that is something that we've continued to build on over the years. I think our employees really feel heard and engaged. I mean, one of the things we're always proud of is we've been voted a top workplace for 6 of the last 7 years by our employees, including this past year, which we think speaks to, it's an anonymous polling through the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, which is a paper here in Pittsburgh. We think it speaks to the fact that they feel heard and feel satisfied, but we constantly are reinforcing the importance of innovation and creativity, and everybody's opinion really brings weight to it, because they're seeing the practice through their own, job description. So yeah, that is something that we talk a lot about and are actually trying to even build on. We're really now working on further building a culture of transparency. I don't know if you're familiar with Zingerman's Deli out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, but I got to hear one of the co-founders of that deli at a CEO lectureship, and he said it's pretty interesting. He says, right, if you go to somebody and you see them and they're just they're laying bricks, and you ask them, "What are you doing?" You know, he's, "I'm a bricklayer. I'm just laying bricks." But if you go to somebody with an organization with some real vision and shared idea of where they're going, they'd say, "Oh, I'm building a cathedral," right? So it's a real difference if people know what their role in your organization is and how they help kids' health. I think it's a pretty powerful thing to be able to do. You know, we're not selling insurance or tires. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think everybody here is pretty on board.
I want to ask you more of like a long-term vision on pediatrics as a whole. I've gotten varying answers. In fact, I think Eitan Walls was my last interview, was the first person to tell me the future of pediatrics isn't going to be much different in 5 to 10 years than it is right now. Everyone else foresees drastic change. So I'd love to hear your input, especially with the angle of this business conversation. What does pediatrics look like in 5 to 10 years?
It might not look very different than it does now, but that's not because it shouldn't. Pediatrics, there's a guy within SOPM in the AAP, his name's Herschel Lesson, and he was one of those people that took me under his wing, and he made a reference to pediatrics being budgetary dust, which is incredibly right when you look at the big healthcare spend. It's virtually nothing compared to all the other things we spend, particularly in adult care. And therefore, it doesn't get the attention nor the necessary, I think, focus to bring about changes that can be amazingly impactful in healthcare, right? Mm-hmm. Think about all the things that we spend billions of dollars fighting right now in healthcare, right? Whether it's obesity, hypertension, stroke, joints going bad because of, weight or arthritic conditions, cancers, infections, allergies. So, and those are physical ailments, which again can be related to poor physical health, but it also can be related to social determinants of health, right? So housing insecurity, food insecurity, education, unsafe neighborhoods, transportation. If we were really, as a country, as a society, going to tackle those big health problems, then we would attack it as a pediatric focused, monumental change, making sure that all kids had access to adequate health care, adequate nutrition, safe neighborhoods, reduction in poverty or elimination of poverty. If you look at the diseases that we spend all that money fighting, those diseases, they all start, or vast majority start, in the pediatric age range. Heart disease, all those things. But that's why I say, if you were going to make a big move as a nationalized approach to better healthcare, you would do it starting with pediatrics. My fear is the reason it won't look much different is that currently healthcare is kind of profit driven in our country, and they look for quick returns on their dollars spent. And so if they can get a cheaper replacement for a hip or 2 days less in the ICU for your end stage renal disease, that's real money to the stakeholders that are out there now. But I don't think that that's going the right direction.
If you could go back and tell your 30-year-old self one piece of advice, what would it be? In some ways, I wish I would have started delving into the business side a little bit earlier, so I think I could have had even more impact. A lot of my career choices have been angled on how I could impact the most people in the most positive way. Started with breastfeeding because I saw not a lot of people were being helped in the way that I thought I could by bringing like the business of medicine and breastfeeding medicine together. So it kind of became the business of breastfeeding. And I did a lot of work at the national level there with the United States Breastfeeding Committee, and worked to kind of help teach the business case for breastfeeding so that businesses would recognize the return on investment for supporting moms. It's gone into immunizations and doing a lot of work with immunizations, including fighting disinformation campaigns that are currently ravaging
us internationally. You know, I think we're up over 21 states in the US right now have measles outbreaks, a completely avoidable vaccine preventable disease. As a matter of fact, in 2000, I think we were pretty close to calling it eradicated. And here we have over 20 states. In Europe, we have over 41,000 cases, close to 40 deaths of a vaccine preventable disease. So that's a place where I really put my time and effort because I think I can help a lot of people there. And one of my latest ventures in this past couple of years has been working with childcare and trying to see if I can help marry the expertise from pediatricians along with the expertise of childcare workers, because that's an oftentimes missed link. And nowadays, kids are oftentimes in settings with childcare workers who see them more waking hours than their parents, and pediatricians aren't particularly well linked with them. And those childcare workers have a cohort of 15 or 20 other kids to compare that kid to and have a lot of expertise. So, and then the other really big thing that we've been trying to do our little fair share of is addressing childhood poverty and social determinants of health. So, what would I tell my 30-year-old self? I would say, you know, it's okay to try and be bold and take bigger steps than you think you can do within your own practice. You're not defined, as a pediatrician, you're not defined as to what you can do to impact kids' lives just within the confines of your office. You can make a much bigger imprint.
Yeah, I agree. I love your mindset on communication and just generally the mindset of don't view your practice as the walls around your practice. You know, there's not only a marketing communications thing that probably needs to happen outside of the practice, but there's also other ways you can impact the community and the children within the community. So I think that those are the two things that are resonating the most with me right now.
Yeah, Kids Plus, I will tell you, I mean, so we're level 3 NCQA patient-centered medical home, but we believe in community engagement so much that we actually built out a special room inside of each of our 3 offices called The Well. And inside The Well, kind of connoting wellness and a place to gather, are a variety of community engagement activities. So think of mom-to-mom peer support facilitating groups. Think of a range of educational classes from our puberty serious sleep class for girls 9 to 12, or for the quiet night sleep class that we teach for families of kids, like it's intended for like 6 months to 2 years. We have in-services there. We have carnivals. If I had to boil down Kids Plus to how we compare ourselves, I think, to other groups, most groups that I talk to view themselves as a place where parents take their kids for sick and well care, right? Well, do I have to get immunizations or get measured or get forms, or sick? They come in with symptoms, and do I have to prescribe something? Kids Plus, we view ourselves as a destination, a place for birthday parties and play groups and mom-to-mom facilitated groups, as well as care for your child when they're coming in for a sick visit or a well visit. But we have carnivals people expect every April at one of our offices, and we have weekly meetings where moms with their babies come in. I mean, we have a variety of different activities that people make their friends here. They have their birthday parties there, right? It's a destination. It's a lot more. Our community engagement is at the core of everything that we do.
What initiative are you most enthralled with right now? You mentioned a lot of them, but what is the one that either you're most enthralled with now or you're most looking forward to in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we're involved in several initiatives right now. The one I'm most enthralled with actually right now, I would say, is fighting vaccine disinformation, just because we're seeing kids suffer and kids die completely unnecessarily. And whether you want to call this a post-truth era that we're in, or people that are just, lacking good guidelines on how to follow science, it's crazy, but that's definitely where a lot of our energy is focused. And it's because right now, right here, we have something that's incredibly effective. As a matter of fact, maybe too effective, because the whole sense of risk perception. People used to line up around the block to get polio vaccinations, seeing their neighbors stricken with polio. But here now we have vaccines for whatever, pneumococcal disease, HPV. I mean, diseases that are meningococcal disease. we have kids that are unnecessarily suffering because parents are not certain what the right answer is, and they're seeking it out in chat rooms and on blogs and Facebook, and it's unconscionable to me to see kids suffer and die unnecessarily. So I mean, yeah, the childhood poverty, the work we do with early child care and education, they're all super important, but the disinformation campaigns and then the suffering that they have created is just it's just a really difficult thing. And it's really been inspiring to us to try and make things better there.
I think that's a great place to end. And I didn't know, I made the assumption, and assumptions are really bad to make. I didn't know that the anti-vax stuff was still a problem on social media. I thought Facebook's AI was sophisticated enough now just to catch it and delete it.
Zach, I just came from France 2 days ago from a global vaccine confidence conference. This is a global issue. And 2 months ago, I was in Vienna speaking on this very topic. It's a major, major, major issue. And it's far from being controlled or being addressed. It's actually quite the opposite. It looks like it's getting more out of hand without a good answer. But we're involved in several projects right now, both nationally and internationally, to try and combat it.
That's awesome. Well, Dr. Todd Wolynn, thank you for joining me on PedChat.
Hey, Zach, thanks very much. And I appreciate you. Good luck to what you guys are doing there.